interesting. From the perspective of a program that originated out of a nonprofit, one of the sticking points is when you find a partner that you work really well with and you start to do the work together, there's also the component of you need to be funded. And what happens is you can't go after the funding as a collective. You have to go at it as an individual. So if James and I go into something and start working together, and then on the back end we say, well, there's this great grant, we have to apply for it. We have to compete with each other and use the same data to try to get that. And so it's one of those scenarios where we have to figure out how do we partner, but also keep the lights on. And I think it's the same for someone getting in a program. You have to compete with the people getting in. But at the same time, this is a relationship business. If you start, most of the people who work in Ascend, they have a group that they work with. And you can't crack that group because they've been rocking together from the beginning. And so I would actually counsel people to say, you know what, find your group. It doesn't have to be a group of writers. Just find your group to say, you know what, we want to work together. Maybe I'm cutting here, you're doing craft services, I'm a driver, but let's find productions that we can work on together and ascend up, because eventually you'll be able to give each other opportunities. And that's just how this whole world works.
Yeah, I totally agree with that it's a relationship business. And so helping one another will pay dividends down the road. Getting that first job, like somebody gave you a chance. And every job I got after my first job, it was because I worked hard. I continued to hone my craft and get better at it, and then made friends and worked with others. And then they would go on to another show and they would bring me along, and I would meet some more people and they'd bring me to the next one. And then sometimes you get to a point where you get called from someone you didn't even work with, but because they knew somebody else that has worked with you. So I think if you are consistent with who you are, continue to be a student of your craft, always wanting to learn more and get better and meet people authentically and I think cooperatively. We're aware that there's competition, but really it's more, we work better together, honestly. And if anything, I think working on a TV show or a film or anything in this business, it's not one person. You cannot do it alone. And that's why these award shows, they list off a whole bunch of people. But like you say, you work as a team, and then you and then like maybe you get the pitch and you got the job, but then you're going to bring him along, and then he brings you along on his thing, or even you're not available anymore, so then you get this other person. So you kind of just have this whole ecosystem of possible folks that you can work with, and you want to be the name that they think of and it comes to mind, and it's a great person to work with, they work hard, nice to be around, and they do the job, and that's how you get work.
There really is no competition. You are your own competition. And so the work that you do, to September's point and to Carl's point, if you're doing the work and you're doing it well, there is room enough for everybody that does good work. There's room enough for everybody who does good work. So if you can do good work and you become known for doing good work, the people who have the jobs are going to call you, and then you can call the other people that you know who are doing good work, to the point that's been made about, again, you're going to create space for everyone. And I think that there's this misconception that we're all going after the same thing at the same time in the same way, and we're not. And there is room enough for us to all collaborate. Because there's a project, and I know about the project doesn't mean that it stops with my knowledge of the project. When you're putting together a production, you know that you're looking above and below the line. Folks who are actually, writing, producing, directing, and then there are folks who are going to be grips, electricians, craft service, et cetera, et cetera. But if you've been doing this a while, you know who's going to do good work. And so you're going to call those people to come and work with you. You're not going to call somebody who's not a good DP to come and be your director of photography. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to call somebody who can't light to come and light your production. You're not going to do that. Somebody who can't do sound, you're not going to do that. You're going to call somebody who does that well. And you want to work with those people because, one, you understand if I get the right person here who can do this well, we're going to move that much faster, and we're going to bring this project in under budget. And we're going to cut the time, which is ultimately the goal, to deliver the final project, right? So we just have to keep in mind that, there is no competition but me. I'm the competition. I'm competing with myself, and I've got to show up excellently at every turn. I got to show up excellently.
Do we have Mike on Shannon?
So yes, being excellent. One of the things, not me personally, obviously my role being in the entertainment industry on any level, but as an African American fundraiser. I mean, I could tell you some stories, being of one in the room for many years, but having to be excellent, having to be uncomfortable, putting myself in places with potential funders, very uncomfortable sometimes, but the end goal is to build that relationship. I always say friends before funds. We're going to become friends and I'm going to ask you for some money later, right? But finding your tribe finding your tribe. I have some really, really close friends who also work in the nonprofit sector who are fundraisers. And we talk and we learn from each other. And we try to say, you need to go here, you need to go there. I can go back to Pan-African Film Festival, Love Jones. I'm dating myself. And I remember being across the way at the theater and coming over to the discussion afterwards and not really knowing anything about the industry, but watching deals being cut in the room. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of young actors and people who worked on that film who didn't know, what was going to happen next. But I just remember sort of just being in the back of the room and listening to people and, wow, these people in the right place at the right time, developing relationships. As uncomfortable as it might make us sometimes, those relationships, like you said, you're going to be excellent, you've got to know your craft, can take you so far in any industry, right? But definitely relationship building, being in the right place, networking, being assertive, and I just believe that from that, so many doors can open for someone. And
so you just made me think about, and I want to make sure I get this point out, that there is some training involved and some preparation involved in preparing ourselves to always show up excellently. Part of our, when we examined where our program had started and when we were restarting, where we were, it was great that we were able to provide the opportunity for young people to actually get hands-on experience, to learn how to be in these spaces. But the other piece that we needed to develop more was key and crucial to us changing our programming. So when we pivoted toward really being about preparation and exposure, that meant we had to introduce these young people to who they are, what they have to offer, and what they need to acquire. But we also had to give them some get-the-job training, is what I like to call it. So you need to understand how to tell your story on a written page, that's your resume. How to tell your story face-to-face, that's networking and interviewing. Like, you need to be able to tell that story, and you've got to practice that, so that you are excellently able to do that at every turn. So to Shannon's point, when you're in the room, you can talk about what you've been doing, what you're working on now, what your focus, where you're going. Because this whole competition piece, you're not competing with anybody else, really but yourself. But you want to make sure that you are able to represent who you are excellently at every turn, and so you've got to prepare for that at every turn. And so we are priding ourselves now on being able to instill that in these young people, so that and that it spills over. So it's not only about you competing for a position in internship, it's about when you're getting ready to go to college. You have to interview for that spot. You want to be able to tell your story in a compelling way that makes that person that you're telling the story to want to advocate for you. If you're a person who's been working in the business and you're trying to make a transition or change, when you're going and talk to the hiring manager, you're able to influence them to advocate for you. So when they're going back to the hiring manager, they can say, "Oh, you have to make sure you talk to this person because they said X, Y, and Z, and I just really believe that it's going to be a key fit." But if we don't begin to train and prepare and expose our young people to these realities, then they're going to be lost. And we don't want you to be lost. And the folks who are in the business are trying to move up or trying to switch from one area to another, you need to be equipped. Like, you need to have these things in your toolbox so that you can compete effectively.
Very well said. I'd just like to quickly get a time check. I want to make sure that respecting all our panelists' time. Do you know? 11:20. Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like each of you just to give a brief thing you want this audience to remember, what you want them to take with them, and then we'll do questions. So we can go down the line, just a brief statement.
I'm going to pass this along. This was passed to me when I first started lobbying, and I was bragging to my mentor about who I knew and the stuff I was doing, and he stopped me and he said, "Stop you right there. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you." And so that's what James was alluding to just now, is letting your work ethic and your product precede you, because that becomes your brand in this town. And so I think that always keeping that in mind, and understanding that developing and nurturing relationships is important, and especially if you meet someone that's in a position of importance, that you respect that open door and only go through that door when you want information, never going through that door with an ask, because eventually, if your work ethic has preceded you and more people start to know who you are, it will get back to that person and they will offer an opportunity without you even asking. The other one is for people who have no access, no understanding about this industry, study the credits of your favorite movie or show. It tells you everything you need to know. Production companies who are doing the work, the department people who are doing the hiring, the kinds of jobs that they were hiring for. Go through and see which ones. You're a construction worker, guess what? You can do set design. If you like to cook, you could do craft services. If you drive an Uber, you can be a driver on set. All of these jobs are high-paying jobs, and all you have to do is study the credits. And then once you study the credits and find a role, start studying that role and understanding what it takes to get into that job. So when you walk through the door for that opportunity, you're so informed that the person's going to be blown away. Oh, this person really gets it, and they really truly did their homework. So I'm going to give them an opportunity, because the best kept secret is now I see studios, networks, the stakeholders who are hiring, they're looking for you. They just don't know how to find you. So they go through the urban leagues and the NAACPs and the Yes to Works of the world to say, tell me how I can find talent. But if you're already out there doing the work and you're nurturing relationships and meeting people, you'll get the opportunity, and there's so few of us because there is an inclusion problem. Once you're known for being good, your phone will start to blow up and you'll have more opportunities than you know what to do with. So I think that the last thing, and this is not related, but it was something that was told to me executive after executive. Lean into who you are. If you're in the room and you're getting an opportunity to pitch or interview, they've already seen your material. You've already made it through that test. They want to know who you are, and they want to know everything about you. So lean into all the crazy things, arrested uncles, past drug addicts. They want to know it because that gives them more color to who you are. And in this creative world, that's actually good. In the corporate world, you don't want to go that route. Stay away from that rabbit hole. But in this world, you want to run right into it.